All of my clients are from my relationship building efforts on LinkedIn. Then my business has come from networking, not from posting. And that is a huge misconception. A lot of people, coaches on LinkedIn say, just post every day and the clients are going to literally fall in your lap. That does not happen. It might happen if you have 20,000 followers, but it never happened for me until I hit about 15,000 followers. So I also wrote a newsletter for a while, but it wasn't getting me clients, so I stopped.
I am here with Leah Densmer. She is the founder of a B2B content marketing agency called Globia. So we'll be deep diving into her experience building that, her thoughts on LinkedIn, content marketing, and a whole bunch in between. So I actually noticed you, Leah, on LinkedIn, I don't know, maybe a few months ago, and I've seen you grown quite a lot. And you're very, you're not shy about sharing your opinions on content. I'm super excited to just, hear what you have to say firsthand. Since you have this agency, you have this experience going from corporate to building this company yourself, what are the highlights and lowlights that people don't necessarily think about?
Love talking about the mistakes and then the successes. So I will be candid and human with you here. I had 2 corp tech layoffs. 2 in like 4 years, and always because there was a merger and they wiped out the marketing department. Layoffs are never personal. And they've been heavy in IT for the past 3 to 5 years. A lot of us have experienced that. But after the second layoff, I felt like I could not go back down the corporate road, applying for jobs, interviewing, getting to the panel, doing a pilot project, and then being ghosted. Like the whole hiring process is broken. And I also felt like I had stagnated in corporate. I wasn't learning. I wasn't being challenged. I wasn't contributing at my level. And I had a lot more to give to marketing departments than I was giving. So I sat down with my husband and I said, I really want to do this thing. And he said, I'll support you for a year. I have an amazingly supportive husband. He's like, we need you to replace your income. We've got a kid going to college. I'll give you a year. So we opened up the business. It cost me $500 to buy all the software, buy the domain, buy the business license. It was not expensive, which people are interested to hear. And then I started networking to find my first customers. And because I was in one industry for 20 years, a really interesting industry, the translation services industry. I had been working in that industry for many years. That was where I started to reach out. I began to do networking within that industry and all the people that I knew in that industry. And I got my first couple clients there, helping them with content marketing and content development. And then I began posting every day on LinkedIn, which I know you also want to talk to me about. I began posting every day, and I'll say that over time I learned how to do it because social writing is completely different than the way most of us are trained to write. I have a degree in English from the early 90s where I learned how to write journalistic pieces and short stories and poetry and such. Not the same as social writing. So you have to learn it. And it's very different. So, Christine, you asked about mistakes. Should I tell you my big ones?
Yeah, because you're making it sound great. Start this new venture. It didn't cost a lot, but you've been in it for 2 years. So besides the great things of having your own schedule and doing work you love, what are some of the mistakes or maybe the downsides that you can share?
Yeah, absolutely. Most of us, when we start a business, are good at our craft, right? You're a good content marketer. You're a good digital marketer or videographer. You don't know how to run a business. So unless we all also have business degrees, you literally don't have a clue. What kind of corporation do you need to open up? How do you do your accounting? What kind of software do you need for invoicing and so on? Subcontracting and paying contractors. There are so much you don't know how to do. And there are big mistakes that can be made if you're trying to do your accounting by yourself or if you're trying to handle tax strategy by yourself. And a lot of people don't button that up and they kind of get stuck. So figuring out quickly what kind of support and help I needed to actually run the business and learning how to run a business took some time. It's also maybe a surprise to people that you can only spend 20 hours or so a week doing customer work at the start because you're spending 20 hours a week figuring out how to run your business. So when it comes to pricing your services, you have to account for all of that. I only have 20 hours a week to spend on customer work, so I can't charge $100 an hour, or I'm not going to meet those financial goals. So doing what you love and being good at it is only half of the equation here. So I had to take myself to school, like books, podcasts, networking on how to run a business.
Now, I read that you recently shared an article. I think you reshared something they'd written, like advice, and you said outsource early. So like you were outsourcing, or at what point, I guess, did you realize you need to outsource the bookkeeping or the things that you're just not good at and it wouldn't make sense for you to do? How long did that take you to learn that that's essential?
Right away. So I outsourced bookkeeping started speaking with our tax strategist on what kind of business entity. I mean, and this is like heavy numbers tax stuff. I outsourced web design. I'd been messing around with WordPress sites, and most of us have no business doing that. And I began to outsource the writing because I realized, so in a content marketing agency, I do the strategy and my team does the writing. I began to outsource the writing because I very quickly didn't have time to do that. So I had to look at the tasks I was doing and realize I can outsource that. I need to outsource that. I need to focus here and not here. So the sooner you can figure that stuff out, the better off you are.
So I know people say, you know, this zone of genius. So for you, it sounds like really focusing on the strategy, and that's where you spend the most time. That's where it's essential for you to spend your time. That's what you would describe it as?
Exactly. So I'm kind of the brain of my own business. And so focusing on the strategy and outsourcing the rest also means I can continue my own education about strategy and keep raising the bar on what I know how to do, trends, networking, that make me really good at the strategy instead of spreading myself too thin by doing all the things.
Yeah. So you're not sitting there working 80 hours a week. So you must have some systems and some things that also help you be able to do the stuff you need to do, and other people or systems help to do the other stuff. Can you share some of the things behind the scenes that work for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I did, this is another kind of positive, and then at the same time, it turned into a bit of a negative. I did participate in a couple coaching communities for entrepreneurs where you can learn a lot and network with other people, and that's valuable. And I also did some one-on-one short-term private coaching about running a business that was helpful, but not necessary over time. Anyway, those groups are big on developing statements, standard operating procedures. And that means that you write down what you do and how you're doing it so that you can create a system out of it, and so you can more easily outsource it. So when you do that, you will find out that, oh my gosh, I'm not using a process that works, or I need a piece of software to do that, or I should be outsourcing it. So the process of looking at how you do stuff instead of just being random about it helps you streamline, consolidate, and tighten things up so you can do more and get rid of the noise in your business. A lot of businesses have a lot of noise because you have bad software or because you're not doing something efficiently.
Do you have any go-to tools that work for you? Or, I mean, you don't have to go nitty gritty, but anything that you think might be helpful and applicable to others?
Yeah. Project management tool is essential. It's critical. I like ClickUp particularly well, but a lot of people use like Asana or Trello or Notion. That's a must. You do it to manage your customer work. You can invite them to boards. You can do it to manage your networking. You can do it to manage any number of things. That's absolutely critical, or you just are losing track of what you're doing. I have 7 clients, active clients right now. Literally no way to manage that unless I have it all nailed down in ClickUp.
And then these 7 that you've had, what's your churn like when it comes to clients?
Good question. All of them have stuck with me over time. My shortest client probably was 6 months. And then you part ways for various reasons. You know, the work has wrapped up. They hire somebody full-time internally, whatever. But most of my clients, I signed 3-month contracts because that's like the minimum that you should do in order to see results, right? But 6 months.
With content, especially, it needs some time.
Really, it's more like 6. So, and I have a couple clients that have been with me since day one. That's super valuable to me, and it's very fun to participate in their change over time.
In terms of content, like what kinds of content are you doing? Are you doing everything across the board?
When I build content strategies, we look at all content types and pick those that will work best for the business. Often the foundation of a content strategy is the blog. Mid-form content is the blog. For all of my clients, I also do ebooks like lead magnets, case studies, newsletters, and social media. I mean, and then there's the odd like sell sheet or like infographic. Also run video programs for some of my customers, and I have 2 really great partners who help with that because I'm not a videographer. But that's important also. A lot of my customers are like, we want more video.
Yeah. I mean, now more than ever, for sure.
Yeah. Lots of landing pages, lots and lots and lots of web pages also.
Interesting. So I feel like your experience is kind of all over the place when it comes to clients, and that's great. You cover different things. So for you as a business, have you been focusing on LinkedIn as your main acquisition channel, or like how do you find clients?
That's a great question. And one of my mistakes, LinkedIn, yes. LinkedIn is where I've gotten all of my business, and my business has come from networking, not from posting. Huge exception. A lot of people, coaches on LinkedIn say, just post every day and the clients are going to literally fall in your lap. That does not happen. It might happen if you have 20,000 followers, but it never happened for me until I hit about 15,000 followers. All of my clients are from my relationship building efforts on LinkedIn. So I also wrote a newsletter for a while, and that was enjoyable. I liked it, but it wasn't getting me clients. It was getting me exposure to other content marketers and helping me kind of develop my ideas, but it wasn't a growth engine for me. So I stopped. And I also have done some blogging, which again, I do just to kind of put my voice in the market and explore my own ideas, but I wasn't getting the SEO traffic that would bring in leads from that effort.
Yeah.
So again, it wasn't revenue generating for me. So I've kind of stopped doing that.
So can you explain more about like how LinkedIn, like you need to be posting to be visible, but how did you do networking through LinkedIn? Because I think a lot of people talk about posting. I mean, even I talk about my journey of posting on LinkedIn. There's a lot of content out there about that. But when it comes to lead generation, it's still this black box. So I'm so curious if you could share how you think it works or how it's worked for you.
Yes, absolutely. And different people have different opinions about it. So I need to reiterate that posting is maybe 25% of the picture. You can get clients without posting. So it's not mandatory. It's helpful because when somebody is aware of you or looks at your profile, you need to look credible. But so posting's only a part of it. Like I said, the power behind my strategy is my not off platform, behind the scenes networking. So that's direct messages. And I have a sequence that I've developed that establishes the connection. And my rules of thumb are helpful and curious. So when you are starting a direct message conversation with a first or second connection, my goal is to be helpful and curious. My goal is to learn. My goal is not to sell. And we've all been pitch slapped, which is when somebody connects with you and then they send you a solicitation and you're just like, delete.
Yeah.
So, and those conversations help me learn things, help me build the relationship. It takes a while before you say, hey, I can help you. You've got this problem that we've been talking about. I can totally help you. Do you want to get on a call? That can take weeks, So I also use video heavily. And by that, I mean, instead of like typing a little message to somebody, I just hit Loom and I say, hey, thought I'd talk to this instead of typing about it. I've got this thought. I've got that thought. Let me know what you think. And then I send the video. And I believe that helps because people can see that I'm human. I'm articulate. I'm human. I'm, then they can know if I'm the kind of person they might want to work with because they've seen me talking. They can also know if I'm not the kind of person they want to work with. And that's great too, because I really believe that the customer consultant fit has to be there for you to be successful. So
yeah,
I've used
absolutely. Yeah, those are some great tips. So you just send the video like as a DM on LinkedIn after you've built the rapport, you start. Yeah. Okay. That's a really smart tip.
Yeah.
Can you get more specific on like a specific case you can mention? Someone that I guess they started as completely cold. Like what was that whole process like? You said it could take weeks. So maybe you can think of a specific client what was that whole process like to get them to become a client of yours?
Yeah. So you would start by sending them, so either you're connected or you're not, or maybe you have a second, and you would start by saying, hey, I noticed we've got 15 connections in common in this industry. I'd love to connect here. Then when they connect, you say something like, I checked out your corporate social, or I checked out your blog, or I checked out your employment history. I can't believe we've both worked at X. You find something that you have in common, or find something where you can have something useful to say, and you put it out there. Sometimes they write back, sometimes they don't. You press forward if they don't write back. A week later, you try something else. I was thinking about you. I found this article. I think it'd be interesting to you, but make sure it's relevant. Please make sure it has everything to do with, their topics they're talking about or their approach to something. So this requires some study. You have to go to their website. You have to look at their LinkedIn so you can have something interesting to say that's got some depth, right? Last thing you want to do is be shallow because then they tune you out. So then, another week, another message. And pretty soon they'll either engage or they won't. If they don't engage and they aren't posting on LinkedIn or don't have a large following, you can jump platform. Then I might look up their email. I use a tool called Hunter, and I might start writing to them on email with the same sort of sequence, helpful, curious. And you will get, if you're genuine and authentic, you will get engagement. Not every time. And that's the way that it goes. But if you're getting engagement 25% of the time, that's a really good productive, successful effort.
I still see you actively posting. Why are you still posting so much?
There's many, many reasons why I keep posting every day. I like it. It helps me explore my ideas and my theories and see what resonates. I'm testing the market. Like, does this idea have legs? Do people have questions about this? So I'm exploring ideas. I'm a creator. I'm a marketer. And I didn't always think about myself as a creator because honestly, that's a little bit cringy. But if I'm a marketer and specifically a content marketer and I'm not exploring ideas in the way that I think my clients should, then I'm really not eating my own dog food. So maybe that's the third thing. That's to show credibility to my customers that I'm doing what I think customers and businesses should do.
The word creator gets some cringe factor to it. But in essence, I mean, a lot of us marketers, like we probably started creating at the early on in our careers. And sometimes, you know, when you become a manager and you take on that role, you forget that creative creator part of you. And I think that if you do anything in content, though, it feels like now more than ever, it's a non-negotiable. You have to still be a creator to stay ahead, to stay in touch with what's going on and what's working. So I also read that when you started the agency, there were things that you were learning, and it seems like you're the kind of person that's always learning. But like SEO maybe wasn't something that you knew, and you kind of took that on. You learned how to do social selling. So being a creator forces you to learn. Would you say that that's the case for you?
Absolutely. So, and being a creator doesn't mean that I'm putting out like Pulitzer-worthy content all the time. It means I'm exploring ideas, and that's literally it. I'm exploring ideas in public with an audience and building my audience over time. Yes, for me, one of the coolest things about starting the business was that I was kickstarted to learn a lot, and I can tell you that my brain came alive. So after years of not really doing that in the corporate world, I did it myself because it interested me and I wanted my business to succeed, and my brain came alive. And then you get better ideas, and then you read more, and then you network and talk to more people. And all of a sudden, literally your brain is firing on all pistons, and it's a flywheel that keeps moving. So another reason why I post on LinkedIn is to build credibility and relationship with peers. And I have this amazing little tribe of content marketers who I talk to once a month, and we share ideas, we share pricing strategy, we literally talk shop, and they're amazing women, and we support each other. And that comes from LinkedIn. It's a world that's real. And my husband is constantly making fun of me because I have created, he's like, are you on LinkedIn again? Those aren't real people. I'm like, they are real people.
Yeah.
They're great.
I mean,
people.
Even
Cool.
just in doing this podcast, I mean, a lot of the people that I the people that I invite is genuinely people I want to talk to. And then they'll end up saying, hey, you should talk to so-and-so. Like, I use the podcast to make LinkedIn more real because it gives me a chance to actually talk to people face to face.
Yeah. To talk to
and especially
people.
And you work remotely, right? I do as well. I mean, I'm based in Taiwan, you're in Idaho, and I talk to people from all over the world. And, you know, I mean, it is genuinely from LinkedIn. But so, I mean, LinkedIn is also the place you say you explore ideas. Do you explore ideas in the way that then if something works, you will then use it for long form? Or like, how do you personally use this idea exploration aspect? Because I think that's an interesting one.
Yeah. Long form, if I had time for it, right? It would be interesting to explore it in more depth, or like a newsletter. But then I'm also able to bring it to a client and say, hey, I've been talking about this in my communities. Could it work for us? Should we explore this? Should we try this? Or it solidifies the recommendations that I make to my clients because I have kind of explored and put legs on the idea through my thinking and my posting. So it affects my work. It affects my approach. And yeah, it would generate longer form content if, like I said, if I had time for it.
Yeah. So I saw that you are a fan of Publer. Is that the tool that you use?
Yeah. Yeah,
I have not used that, but you mentioned it and I was curious because, you know, I feel like there's no perfect scheduling tool. I default to like native publishing when I can because they say the algorithm prefers that. But so you're a fan of Publer as a tool that's helped you. Like, how does it help you? I'm curious because I'm always interested to see what the pros actually use.
Right. I love the tool. We're going to say Publer. I think it comes from a small shop in Poland. Plan that I pay for is $10, which is not significant, but it lets me schedule my posts. I can't tell that there's any conflict with the algorithm. Developers are really careful about that, but some other tools do interfere with the algorithm. It lets you schedule your posts and kind of put them on a calendar and then drag and drop them, which is great. It has some analytics in the back end if you pay for it. It allows you to tag posts so you could sort and filter for your posts on strategy or planning or whatever. It lets you really easily reuse posts. Here's a hack, okay? A lot of people think they have to write new content every single day for LinkedIn. In no way. So if you have 60 good posts and you're posting 3 times a week, let's do the math. That's like 20 weeks of posts. Then you reuse them. You literally go back to the beginning and recycle the posts that were good and tweak them a little bit or expand your idea. But there is no reason to write posts every day. There's a lot of pressure if that were true. So this tool lets me really easily reuse the post. I just go back 3 months and grab a post that I liked and I reuse it. So it's cut my time like in half. And I love that you can just see everything that you've done on LinkedIn in one interface. It's a great tool.
Give it a try. I'm going to give it a try again. I recently started testing out Typefully, which some people use. I think it's more of a default for Twitter. It helps to do that. So I'm exploring Twitter. I'm exploring Blue Sky. But I think their LinkedIn is okay. But Typefully is the other one that people have recommended to me as like beyond Buffer. I was a fan of Buffer, but I don't think it's robust enough for LinkedIn. The preview's not good. Okay. So yeah, I think Typefully is another one if you want to give it a shot just to see. Yeah. And that's the thing about being a creator too, is that you're always testing tools that then you could take either for yourself or for your clients, right? Something that you're using, because there's new stuff all the time and it's worth experimenting.
Totally right. That said, that leads me to another mistake, Christine. Tools.
Tell me.
Yes, you do need to explore tools as a creator and as a consultant. Switching tools is super painful. So you want to pick the right tool. So the right email marketing platform, the right accounting tool, the right social media tool. I've had to switch tools 3 times and I can tell you it's disruptive and painful every single time. So I started with Author to Up for social media, which I think was in favor maybe a couple of years ago. It did mess with the algorithm. So I made the switch to Publer and that was painful. There's an export, there's an import. I changed accounting tools also just several months ago, also painful. So get tools recommendations, be careful about what it is you need, and then pick and pay for the right one. But I mean, if you build a castle and click up and then it falls apart on you, you're in a world of hurt. Yeah.
What was the accounting tool that you didn't, what's the before and after for that?
Yeah, it was Wave accounting, which I loved, but I became an S Corp, which means I have to run payroll, and it fell apart there because of where I live. It didn't have the right ever. I switched to QuickBooks, which is the gold standard. Way more expensive. So when you're starting a business, you do look at price. You're like, well, that's a $10 tool. I'll do that. I don't want to do the $120 tool. But you need the right systems to run your business, just period. So you kind of have to figure out that system and pay for it.
Did you start as an LLC at the beginning and then
And then I switched to an S Corp on the advice of my tax accountant in my second year, in January of this past year.
I think it means you were growing enough that it required you to change that. So
it was a tipping point. Everybody was like, you need to be an S Corp like yesterday. So yeah.
I appreciate you sharing those details because it's very interesting to me.
No, people don't talk about the money stuff. And they don't talk about how hard it is to actually run a business. And that is where I have conversations with entrepreneurs all the time. That is where people fail. They don't know how to run the business, and they don't talk to the right people, and they don't take themselves to school on these aspects of running a business. I have found it really fun. I've enjoyed it a lot. I think it's joyful to figure it out. But a lot of people they would rather not manage their business. And then that means that your practice is probably not going to thrive.
Yeah. I think it's good what you said at the beginning about you only have 20 hours. I guess you could say 50-50. 50% of your time is spent on doing the thing, and so the other 50%, at least at the beginning, is building the business if you want it to succeed.
Right.
So that's really good.
It was a surprise to me. I track my time very accurately, and I don't do it to be rigid or type A. I do it because I need to know where I'm spending my time. And I need to know if I'm quoting my projects accurately. So I'm really careful about tracking my time. And in the first few months, I was like, oh my gosh, I spent literally 25 hours this week testing out software and writing LinkedIn posts. And that was a surprise.
Do you just use an old-fashioned timer, or like what do you use to track? I'm curious.
Excel, and kind of, I finish a task and then I put half an hour in there. But I think some people use timers. I never have. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't either, but you're inspiring me to think about my time more. I mean, I kind of know where it is, but I don't think about it that granularly.
And I think you need to.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of things people resist when they're building a business because they don't think it's important or whatever. It's an extra step.
It's not the fun stuff. But if you're building a business with systems that, you need to do it.
Not the fun stuff. Yeah. But like I said, I found satisfaction and enjoyment in doing that stuff because it made my business grow.
Yeah.
I had a full book of business at a year. So, and now I'm on a wait list. So I can't take on any new clients till late summer. So by my measure, I have succeeded. And so I'm very clear on where my mistakes were because I made several, but I'm also very clear on what I did that has helped me succeed. And I didn't do it alone. I had podcasts, books, like I said, a one-to-one business coach and some communities. I did not do this alone. That's another mistake. Do not try to do this alone.
How did you figure out what you needed? Like, how did you know you needed a community? Or, did you find a problem and then you go look for a podcast that solved that? Like, you say don't do it alone, but maybe some people are like, well, I don't know what I need, actually.
Yeah, it's a good question. So, and I can tell you what I think you need. Probably from my initial networking, people would say, I'm struggling with this. And then you're like, ding, 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 I need some help with that. So communication and networking. There's also a bunch of business owners, entrepreneurs on LinkedIn to follow. I'll try to think of some names who share publicly what they're doing. Like Erica Schneider is one. She's very candid about the kind of ins and outs of running a business. And then it became clear that other people were joining coaching circles. And there's some coaches who post a lot on LinkedIn, so you can kind of find out who they are. So I joined a coaching circle. And I guess so, and I read a bunch of books. So it's kind of that ecosystem when you open up your mind to input that brings the questions to you, and being aware that you need the input and seeking it from whatever source, right? From a peer, from a book, from a podcast. Yeah.
I love that. So being open and just like, it was almost like when you decided to be a business owner, being open and knowing that you're going to have to rely on others and then figuring it out as you went along. That's what it sounds like.
When I first started the business in the first 6 months, it was spring and summer. I would walk for an hour a day and listen to business podcasts. So I would walk, and sometimes I would like stop and make a note because it was information I didn't want to lose. An hour a day, just absorbing information from different sources. And that was huge. That is how I learned to run a business, from walking and then networking with people and listening to these podcasts.
If you can't think of them now, you'll have to like send me a list of their must listen podcasts.
I can think of who, and they're all women business coaches. So Peggy Jones is one, Natalie Ekdahl is another one, Melissa Lieberman, and Leah Neaderthal are 4 women who run great podcasts. I mean, they would appeal to men too, but for some reason I gravitated towards them. And there's lots of stuff about getting out of your own way, money mindset, setting up offers, pricing, just on and on. Awesome. Good.
I will definitely link those. I'll find those and I'll link the podcast down below.
Definitely.
Okay, so who do you look to as someone, whether it's business, whether it's content, marketing, like who do you follow on LinkedIn that you think is inspiring for you?
Yeah, good. There's like I said, my tribe of women with whom I speak pretty frequently are great to follow. They're Renee, Lynn Froyo, and Stacy Alesco. They do different aspects of content marketing. So depending on what your business is, you need to find peers who do what you do, who you can network with and learn from. Peers who are active. Big creators who I do follow to learn both about my craft and building a business are Erica Schneider, Devin Reed, Pierre, Herubel, Herubel, is a very sharp marketer. John Bonini. Let's see, who else do I like? Heike Young. She is the director of content at Microsoft and does an amazing job with video. So that's fun. It's been fun to watch her become a creator. She shares a lot about how she does it. So those people are worth following for sure. And there's a handful of people who do a lot of kind of social media posting too. Meaning coaching, meaning insight on how to do social media. And all of those people do in some regard. So
from all the things that it sounds like you're kind of always learning, always picking up on what's the latest thing. Would you say there are any trends or things that you think are particularly interesting for you? Or it could also be something that's like conventional wisdom that you think is overhyped. I'm curious, like what you're seeing. Yeah, I want to know what you think. What are your hot takes?
Yeah, exactly. And the first point I'll make is that a hot take or a trend for running my business is maybe a microcosm of what I also recommend to my clients. They are the same principles on a small level in my little tiny agency and to a big level on the $60 million businesses that I work for. So the first one is probably zero-click content, which you've probably heard about. Amanda Natividad is the generator of this idea. And the basic concept is when you are creating content, you create useful, real problem solving information in that piece of content instead of just teasing people and sending them to another source. Sending somebody to another source used to be used to generate traffic or get people to the website. And that's really irrelevant in 2025, in part because SEO is changing so drastically right now because of chat. So zero-click content is a really important concept to explore. No, you can't track traffic anymore, but it does so much more to build your reputation and your credibility and for you to be useful that it's worth it. Hard to measure, but worth it. So that's a big one, zero-click content. And I'm not going to say the death of SEO, but the shift of SEO away from, that pulls you away from the need to drive traffic to a website to the need to produce useful, relevant content. And that's back to basics. Useful, relevant content is back to basics instead of, and I think for 10 years, it was all about keyword chasing and driving traffic to websites, and that's not it anymore. So those are the biggies for me. What I find over and over again is that people are overcomplicating their content program. They've just built this massive engine with all these channels that they can't sustain, and there's breakdowns all along. So my rule of threes is kind of a keep it simple framework. So it's 3 content types that you're going to focus on, probably a blog, social, and newsletter. I usually look at first 3 pillars, which are your themes that you talk about. Technology. So for a lot of the companies I work for, it's like technology, corporate culture, and events. And then a third one could be like workflow and process. So 3 topics that you explore in your content, no more than that. 3 things to measure. So you don't measure everything. You just measure a few things that you're able to measure and analyze and track against. 3 buyer personas. You only need 3. You don't need 12. You only need your top 3. And by top, I mean the people who give you the most money. That's who you profile. So in each case, 3 distribution channels. And I think those are the 5. It's my 3x5 framework. So 3 distribution channels. Are you distributing your content via social? SEO is a distribution channel, via a newsletter. So if you're able to narrow and focus on just 3 elements for each of the categories of content strategy, you can achieve that. You can not stop spreading yourself too thin. You can stop spinning your wheels. You can narrow your focus enough to actually get results and get the thing done.
I mean, I think what you're saying is we need to prioritize. You can't do everything. You can't do all the things. If you can do 3 of each of those. So you had goals, buyers, themes, channels, metrics.
Yeah.
You're going to be less overwhelmed and hopefully making more progress. I like that.
Right. Yeah, I meet so many teams who are like, I mean, they show me their strategy deck and it's 92 slides long and they only have one poor writer trying to handle everything. And they're trying to do Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. And you're like, just stop. It's literally insane what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I totally understand that. We're a 3-person marketing team for a long time. And so it's like, you have to focus. And that's why we ended up focusing on LinkedIn. We focused on one, experimenting with others, but we focus. Yeah, focus is really an underrated strategy, actually. Focus. Okay, so we're coming to the end of the conversation. I want to know if you were building, if you were a B2B business looking to build a content marketing strategy, do you have any sort of tips of what you would focus on, or just really quick? I know it's a loaded question, but maybe people who are looking to get started, what's your advice?
Yeah, most of the people who I talk to already have some form of content program in place, right? They're blogging, they're posting on social. They maybe have like a mini content program in place. So I take people back to the basics. Very quickly, I found out that back to the basics means you're looking at your messaging and your positioning. So a lot of companies think they have messaging and they think they have positioning and differentiation, but they don't. So that's one of the first things I do is, are you solid here? Do you know who you are in the market? Do you know what your position is? And then you do that 3x5. And you choose the things that you want to go for in each of those 5 categories. It's also important. A lot of companies that I work for are not new. I do not work in startup land. So they have a lot of content. I had one client who had 1,562 pieces of content. So that's a 30-year-old company. You have to look at that content. You have to literally deep 6. The stuff doesn't work. Keep 10%. Reuse that if you can. So a lot of times it's kind of laying the foundation, positioning and messaging, developing your 3x5, and then looking at your old content to clean it up. That's a lot of work. That's 3 months of a lot of work with your fractional head of content or with the person that you have in-house. And you can create content while you're doing that work, but you need to understand that your content that you're creating isn't anchored in strategy until you get that work done.
Yeah, I think I was just speaking a few weeks ago about the importance of brand. And I think when you talk about brand strategy, I mean, that's what messaging and positioning is. And I think that sometimes people think, yeah, I can skip that. I can get to that later. But if you're not doing that at your foundation, everything else, it's not going to be tied back to a strategy. So easier said than done. I understand how things can get awry in marketing teams.
That's an interesting point that you just made also. Easier said than done. I do see brands trying to saddle their senior writer with content strategy or trying to have their digital marketer run content strategy. There is a lot to know. I'm telling you, there's a lot to know about content strategy and how to make it work that a more junior person can't lead. I am all for letting people learn. I'm all for empowering people. But if you are a B2B who is serious about content strategy, then please look at hiring a fractional or finding somebody who can be part-time on your team to help guide the whole thing. And a lot of writers don't want to do this work. They just want to write and they're awesome at it. And when you try to get them to do content strategy, everything is a little bit harder or slower or less effective.
That's a good point. I think putting the, like, as a, whether it's a business owner or as a head of marketing or whatever, making sure you're having the right people do the right thing. I think that's really important.
Yes. And those people are going to be happier if they're doing things in their zone of genius, for sure.
Yes. Absolutely. Okay, if we could end with, you've given us lots to think about in this episode. If you can end with any quick wins or actionable tips, brand strategies on the other end of things. But let's talk about a quick win or something that could be, LinkedIn routine. It could be content marketing. Any just something we can leave the listeners with.
Right. For my clients and for others, small business owners like myself, I think you should nail your LinkedIn strategy. And for small companies, that's you. That's me. For larger companies, it is managing your corporate channel and helping your people to post in the context of social selling. So it's a much bigger effort with a corporation than it is with a solo, but sorting out your content strategy, what you post about, when you post, how you measure it is primary, I think, in this marketplace.
I've seen a lot of conversations about social selling, especially when you're talking about corporates encouraging, empowering, giving the resources to their employees. I think that's a whole other topic, but I think that is something I'm hoping companies get better at because it involves letting go a little bit of their control because they're still individuals who are sharing things on behalf of a company. And I'm hoping that there are more forward-thinking mindsets about that because I think there is still a lot of fear that either people don't know what to post, so they're afraid, or the company is afraid that they're not saying the company line or things like that. So obviously we're creators. We do post a lot on LinkedIn, but I'm just hoping it does trickle down to the average person because building your personal brand, it's great. And it's like a win-win. And I just see that there's still a lot of obstacles in the way.
There are. And teams need to be trained and supported. You can't just say, go post. They need to be trained on why and how. And I run a training on that for my customers. And then support them. So I'm literally sometimes reviewing the LinkedIn posts of the CEO before he hits public.
Yeah.
That's my role until he learns how to do it. One really cool tool that I encourage people to look at for company advocacy is Octopost, OKTO, Octopost. Good tool, good podcast, and a really supportive account management team. So I've been impressed with that tool and that team for helping companies get off the ground with social selling.
Great tip. I'll link that below as well for those who want to check it out. Well, Lee, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for making time. And definitely go check out Lee on LinkedIn.